What's up, guys? We are back with episode 25 of Sport Vitamins. Unfortunately, injuries are part of professional sports, and our goal is to try our best to limit them. But when one of our athletes is forced to stay on the sideline, having a well oiled medical department can play a huge role, especially when you play a massive amount of games each season. Today's guest is Federico Genovesi, osteopath and physiotherapist at Manchester City Football Club. Some of the topics that we are going to discuss with Federico are return to play and return to performance strategies and communication between different departments of a professional team. So, without further ado, here's the episode with Federico Genovesi. Okay, Federico, welcome on the show.
Hi, nice to meet you, Roberto, and thank you to invite me.
Federico is the physiotherapist and osteopath at Manchester City Football Club. But Federico, why don't you start with a little background?
Okay, yes, I am graduated in physiotherapy in 2005, and I was really lucky because I started to work in professional football with Lazio soccer team in 2006. Worked there for 6 years. Then I moved to Palermo, another Serie A team of football, and the second year I became the head of the physiotherapists. So I started to develop a good leadership skills. And then in 2016 I had the chance to join Man City, and I arrived here in UK, and now I'm still working here. I took a diploma in osteopath in 2011, and I'm expert in applied kinesiology. In the time I had some short experiences with national teams. In particular, I would like to remember the one with the Argentina national team at the Russia World Cup in 2018. So this is almost everything about my background. I'm starting next season a master degree in strength and conditioning at the University of Salford, because it's a degree that has got the focus on the biomechanics. This is a skill that I would like to develop.
Wow, an amazing background. And you just mentioned leadership skills. This is something that we will go back on during our conversation. But I would like to start with you talking about the main differences that you found among different countries.
Yeah, here in UK is a bit different. The organization of the work day respect to what is happening in Italy, or at least what used to happen when I was there. Here, every day starts with a medical meeting where half of the physiotherapist department and the doctors and the sports scientists, the fitness coach, meet all together to share all the informations about our players. And of course, we plan in that meeting everything that we need to do during the day. In Italy, this didn't happen, unfortunately. Of course, should be maybe something that probably now some teams are doing the same, but when I used to work there, we didn't do this. We just did some meetings sometimes during the week just to plan some specific situations, but it wasn't a usual thing. Here, another thing that I can tell you that is different respect to Italy is that the communication in between the different departments is amazing, and these, of course, help the athletes that are in the middle, because of course in every team is important to put the athlete in the middle, and all the staff, the fitness coach that are working on the function, the sports scientists that are working on the monitoring of the training and the loads, and the physiotherapists that are working on the structure. They should be around the players and ensure that he's fine in every aspect of the movement system. So this communication is absolutely necessary to improve the performance and the health of the physical health of the player.
How are you guys organized in the medical stuff? Who's in charge of the medical stuff, and then who's in charge, for example, of the performance stuff, and how you guys communicate between the two departments?
Yeah, so in charge of the medical department there is, of course, the doctor, and just below himself there is the head of the physiotherapists, and there are different profiles of therapists. We've got few sport therapists or soft tissue therapists. We've got some physiotherapists that are more specialized in the movement screening and movement rehabilitation. Then there is one osteopath, that is myself. And this is from the medical side. On the other side, from the performance point of view, we've got the head of performance, and then there are some sports scientists. There is someone that has got more skills in the strength and the conditioning, someone else that is more specialized in the rehabilitation on the pitch, someone that is taking care about the nutrition and the supplementation. And then, of course, there is a continuous communication in between the two departments. Of course, this happens mainly during the medical meeting in the morning, but we use also to organize different medical meetings during the afternoon to speak maybe specifically about one single player, to plan the screening process, to plan the rehabilitation program in case of injury. And of course, this is the official one, but there are also unofficial communications that happen maybe at the coffee machine, but there are still important, because of course, if I see something during one treatment specific, speaking about one player, and I want to communicate something to the strength and conditioning coach, because maybe he's taking care about his pre-activation, of course, I need to communicate to himself, and even if it's not official, we need to do it. So this is really important. We should avoid to pass too much information, because sometimes they are noisy and they create confusion instead of clarity. But whatever we think that is important in terms of prevention, in terms of rehabilitation, if we see something clear, if we've got the feeling that maybe today the player is not well, there is something even that is not physical, but we want to communicate to the fitness coach, is important to share all the information in between the two departments.
And do you also create a series of reports, like daily reports, weekly reports, and monthly reports that you share with the performance department and also maybe with the coaching staff?
Yeah. We used to prepare a single report for the specific players, where let's start from behind. At the beginning of the season, we used to perform some screening process of the players, the physiotherapists from the structural side and the quality of the movement, the fitness coach from the performance side. And then we build the profile of the players. So we share this information by ourselves, but the screening process doesn't stop at the beginning of the season, but we try to repeat when it's possible, when there is a bit more time, because we used to play every 3 days. So it's not always possible to perform the screening processes, but whenever we have the chance, we update it, and we look if the prevention strategy or the corrective strategies is working, and we share all these informations with the other departments. And this is our organization, and I think that it is working very well. Of course, there is the need to prepare reports and to record all the informations and all the data about the players. We use, but this is a legal aspect also, to report and to record all the treatment data. But this is important because sometimes if in the future you've got a similar injury or a similar situation, you can still come back to your record and check if there is something useful that you used to do in the treatment or in the training or in the exercise session and whatever it is. So this is an important side, an important part of our work, and everyone should take care about this to prepare, to record all the data and to prepare report to share with the other departments.
Absolutely, it's paramount. Once you have an injury, or even if you don't have an injury, you just have to work with one of your athletes. Having some data on your computer that you can go back and see what they did, for example, 2 weeks ago, 1 month ago, 1 year ago, it's very, very important. And sometimes it's crucial when it comes to load management and also understanding why something like an injury happened or an injury occurred.
Yeah, and I think that we should always, I always start from one concept that we are dealing with the movement system that is a system really complex because it's made by a lot of anatomical parts that has got a lot of interaction one each other. So it's really complex, and all the scientists that in the history spoke about the complex system, they say that we need to analyze and to treat the complex system based on the concepts of structure and function. So from our side, maybe the physiotherapist and the osteopath take more care about the structure of the system because we put hands on and we try and we should treat the structure of the body. From your side, the fitness coach, maybe you work more on the function, but we need to analyze both together because they are really strictly interconnected one each other. So it's beautiful if you record all the data to analyze if maybe one pain or one dysfunction found in the structure is coming when your data from the function, from the monitoring load system was worse than usually. So this is important because, of course, if you find a pattern of, I don't know, imagine that that week the load was higher than normal, and the following week he had some increment in the number of dysfunction, or maybe in the report of the stiffness, or maybe an injury. It's beautiful to check and analyze it because if it is happening again in the future, maybe we can prevent this problem and maybe we can plan an intervention previous the problem is coming. So it is really useful to record the data and to share it and to do sometimes meeting all together, looking for a possible problem and to prevent a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. And who is the one on the medical staff that has to deliver the message to the coaching staff? For example, let's say we have an injured player and we want to let the head coach know if that guy can practice or eventually if he can play. Who's the one who delivers that message?
So the voice that come out from the medical meeting is the same for everyone, but of course, the club doctor is the one that at the end of the medical meeting used to go to the manager and share all the information with him. But sometimes happen, it shouldn't, but sometimes happen that maybe you meet in the corridor the manager and he's asking yourself something, and there is the perfect moment and the important moment where you have to tell the same message that came out from the medical meeting. Otherwise, a problem could start and could happen. So it is important that the voice is unique, the message is just one, but in our organization is the doctor that used to go to the manager to report the situation of the players in case there is an injury, is planned, and the supposed day of return to play and all the informations.
Okay, we just mentioned injured players, of course, and can you walk us through the rehab process of a player? Okay, like a general rehab process. How do you decide all the steps to return to play, and then how do you decide all the steps to return to performance?
So yeah, the first step, of course, is the diagnosis. We wait for the diagnosis. It depends if there is the need to perform an MRI scan or just an ultrasound scan, but we are lucky because we've got all the facilities to perform this kind of screening. So whenever there is an injury, the first step is to have a clear diagnosis of the injury. Then the person or the people in charge of the rehabilitation meet together to build the rehabilitation plan that has to be based on criteria and not on the time. So we define the milestones for the passage in the phases of the rehabilitation, and we define the exit criteria based on the location of the injury and based on the mechanism of the injury. For us, in football, the main problem are the muscle injuries. Sometimes, of course, happen even ligament and joint injuries, but are less frequent, even if more dramatic. But we expect more muscle injuries during the season than joint problems. So our exit criteria maybe are slightly different from the typical injury in basketball that maybe are coming from the ankles and the knees. But of course, they are based on the muscle strength, the muscle range of motion, and maybe some performance measures. So there is one physio that is in charge of the rehabilitation for all the period, but he tries as much he can to ask to other person, for example, to myself from the osteopathic point of view, or to the soft tissue for the recovery and everything like that, to put their help in the rehabilitation. So everyone is helping the player to return to play, but of course there is one person, one physio that is in charge of the rehabilitation. And in the first phase, in the acute care of the injury, of course, is working just by himself. Maybe I make an assessment from the osteopathic point of view, and I start to plan and schedule my interventions during the rehabilitation. Then when the acute phase is over, we'll start to work even in the gym with the support of the strength and conditioning guy. And we used to do a mini cycle of 3 days, where in the first day there is the CV training plus the rehabilitation. The second day there is the strength plus the rehabilitation, and the third day is a general recovery, just treatment. So when we reach the milestones to allow to the player to return to train and to go on the pitch, that mainly are based on strength criteria of the muscle injured, or range of motion criteria, or for example, we use a lot the counter movement jump to look at the symmetry of the two legs in a fast movement. So when he's able to come back in the pitch for the pitch training, there is another guy that is from the performance staff that is taking care about his training in the pitch. That should be, and in our case, is sport specific. So we don't use to do different kind of training. We start straight with the sport specific training, because the sport specific training reduce the risk of a re-injury. So we try to do as much we can this kind of a rehabilitation in the pitch. And then when the player will pass all the exit criteria, that of course are the strength values and the range of motion values and some physical performance measures values, considers also the high speed, a progressive load calculated by acute chronic rush, or mini cycle to mini cycle difference in percentage. And then we allow the player to come back to the training. Of course, we keep taking care about himself. We build up prevention strategy for the future, because we know that the remodeling phase of the injury in a muscle injury go ahead in the time, maybe for the next 4 months. So it is important, it's really important to keep the player under our monitoring, and to keep with the prevention strategy, with the exercise strategies, with the treatment, with the recovery, and with the load management.
Okay. Let's say we don't have an injury that will sideline an athlete for 1 year. We have an injury that will sideline this guy or this athlete for 1 month or 2 months. In which part of the rehab process one of the members of the coaching staff come into play?
Sorry, I lost you for a second, Roberto.
Can
you repeat, please?
Yeah, of course. Let's say we have an injured player that is going to be out for 1 or 2 months. So we're not talking about long-term injury, like 1 year injury, just like a 1 or 2 month injury. When one of the members of the coaching staff, let's say the head coach or one of the assistant coaches, come into play right at the beginning, so he will start doing something, maybe some tactical stuff with one of the assistant coaches, or it will start working with these members of the staff later on during the rehab process?
Yeah, no, later at the end of the rehabilitation process, we used to rule out the player from the team when he's injury, even if it's a small injury and a minor problem. We rule out him from the team, and we give him back to the manager once he has passed all the exit criteria and is able to fully train with the team. Maybe at the beginning, we used to do a partial training, so we don't put the player straight for the full training. Maybe he does 2 or 3 sessions that are partial, progressively a bit more. And at the end of this 2 or 3 days, he will be able to be available to be selected or to play with the manager. But usually the coaching staff is not in the process till we say that the player is able to do everything with the team.
Okay, I got it. No, I ask this because I always like to quote, I don't know if you know Adam Loyakono. He's the head of performance department of the Phoenix Suns. It's an NBA team. And he always used the $100 analogy. So basically, when an athlete is injured, every day he has $100 available. And for example, at the very beginning, he will give $95 to the physiotherapist, $3 to the strength coach, and maybe $2 to the assistant coach. But they want and then as soon as he start progressing, then he will give $20 to the physiotherapist, 15 to the strength coach, and 5 to the assistant coach. But they want the coaching staff to be involved right away. So they want the athlete to feel part of the team right from the very beginning of the rehab process, and which is something very interesting.
Yeah, maybe it could be cool to do in that way. Of course, we try to do as much we can sport-specific rehabilitation on the pitch. So, of course, it's not tactic, but it's something related with the sport, with the ball, with movement based on the sport and on the position in the field. So we try to be as much specific we can, but maybe we can think to introduce this kind of approach.
Okay, let's switch gears. Let's talk about your main duties. Doing my research for this podcast, I listened to another podcast with you, and I heard about the classification that you use. You classified all the players with different colors. First of all, it's very smart and very intuitive. And I want to know, how do you assign a color to each player?
So from my side, it depends from the structural situation. So my assessment, being an osteopath and a physiotherapist, is mainly on the structure, even if I love to assess the movement quality. But here in Manchester City, there are other people that are more specialized than me in that, and I'm learning from them. But my role here is to assess the structure of the player. So based on the number of dysfunctions, so I don't know if you know something about osteopathy, but our unit of measure is called somatic dysfunction, that it represents a dysfunction of one structure of the somatic part of the body. So one bone structure, joint structure, or myofascial structure. This somatic dysfunction is defined by 4 parameters, 4 features that are under the acronym TART, T-A-R-T, where the first T is for tissue texture abnormality. So at the palpation, sometimes we used to feel an abnormality of the tissue. The A is for asymmetry, that could be at the palpation or could be at the movement test. Then there is the R that is for restriction of movement, that again is at a movement test. And then there is the last T that is tenderness, so pain at the palpation. Based on this kind of assessment that needs to perform palpation and movement tests, the movement tests are not just active movements, but mainly are passive movements, osteokinematic movements, so the gross joint movements, for example, the elbow flexion, the elbow extension, but even the arthrokinematic movements, so the passive glides of the joints. So when we perform this kind of assessment, we should define the number of dysfunction that this structure has got. Of course, we cannot think to treat every dysfunction we find, but we should analyze the trend of the dysfunction. So what I used to do is, for example, during the preseason, try to repeat as much as I can this kind of assessment during 2 weeks of preseason, for example. I try to do this maybe 4 or 5 times for each players. And I try to analyze the variation in the number of dysfunctions. So this, at my eyes, it represents the way in which the structure is adapting to the load. So for example, you use different unit of measures, like the heart variability, the RP scale, or I don't know what kind of measures you use. For myself, that I have to assess the structure, I use the somatic dysfunction, because for me and for my skills, like osteopath, and from my experience, of course, is a subjective measure, but for me is a really useful measure. Of course, we have also to assess the objective measures, for example, the joint range of motion or muscle flexibility. And these are important measures, but we need also to take in consideration the subjective measure, because otherwise our skill don't have any value. So we develop experience, and we should use this experience. And in my opinion, the somatic dysfunction is a good unit of measure. So I try to analyze the trend of the dysfunction, and at my eyes, as I told you before, it represents the way in how the structure is reacting to the load. So if this is stable, I'm more than happy to say that one player is okay, that is reacting very well to the load, and so maybe it's a green color, so he just need an assessment each 15 days and one osteopathic treatment each 15 days. If the amount of somatic dysfunction is increasing during the monitoring, this, at my eyes, is a danger, because it means that the structure is not reacting well, it's adapting too much to the load. So maybe it could face in the future a problem. So it is important to maybe plan an intervention weekly, or maybe twice a week. So my intervention is based, again, in a treatment on the structure. So I treat the somatic dysfunctions, but not all of them, but just the ones that I think that are the main driver of the problem. Because I need also to assess a bit the function, but I don't assess the function in an active way, like the qualities of the movement or the strength measurements. I perform manual muscle tests just to find out if there are muscle inhibitions. So I'm not testing the strength of the muscle, because this needs to be done in an objective way with dynamometers or isokinetic machines. But I try to do it with manual muscle tests to assess the proprioceptive qualities of the muscle. And this is another assessment, another tool that I use in my weekly or monthly assessment or 2 times a week assessment. So based on that parameters, I decide if one player needs more than one treatment for month, 2 treatments for month, or more than 2 treatments for month. So it depends from the structure of the single player. This is my criteria to define if one player is green, if one player is yellow, or if one player is red. And based on that, of course, I plan my strategy of intervention, my treatments, and I share all these informations with the physiotherapists that are taking care about the movement and with the fitness coach to build from that side a specific pre-activation to improve again this structural dysfunction that will allow a better function in the pitch, in the performance.
So let's say you have an athlete that has a red flag. Your intervention will be daily, basically, with a rehabilitation routine, right?
Yeah, so based on the finding that we take out from the pre-season screening, we used to build a specific pre-activation that has to be performed before the generic pre-activation of all the team. So imagine that one player has got a balance problem on the right ankle or a specific strength deficit on the right hip flexor, for example. We tried, based on that finding, to build a specific pre-activation of these players. Of course, the activation will be progressive. So we will not start from iso inertial exercises, but we'll start from basic exercises to allow to the structure to adapt slowly to the load. Then this screening, because of the amount of the games, there is not the chance to perform this kind of screening every week. We used to perform this maybe once a month or maybe once each 2 months. But we need to find out other screening processes. For example, the structural screening process is one process that, being passive, is not demanding for the player, and we can perform several times during the week. So based on my screening, I use to schedule the intervention plan from an osteopathic point of view. Based on my screening, plus the screening of the pre-season and the screening of the movement, we try to build together the pre-activation plan for the specific player.
Okay, I got it. Very, very interesting. Okay, Federico, there is another very interesting topic I would like to touch on, and it's something that you mentioned at the very beginning of our conversation, and it is leadership skills. What do you mean for leadership skills, and how important these skills are when it comes to working with so many other practitioners, like other physiotherapists, like many doctors and many strength and conditioning coaches, and also members of the coaching staff?
It is really important both to communicate with our colleagues and with the performance and management staff, but also to well manage the players. It is important because we need to show to the players that we know what we are doing, that we are planning everything, that we are not just betting, that we are not just doing something today and then tomorrow we are changing completely plan. When I speak about leadership, it means that everyone in our job, in our position, in our role should be the leader of his job. So, for example, for myself, I am the leader of the osteopathic field here at Man City, and I need to do this with a responsibility. I don't have just to do it for myself. I need to do it for the players and for the staff and for myself as well. But for the players, because I need to plan everything in the right way and to do the right thing in the right moment. for my colleagues, because whatever I'm doing and whatever I'm finding out from the player, it is important to share with them, because every information that I can give because of my skills and because of my knowledge could be important for them when is blending and mixing with their knowledge, So I think that everyone that is working in a professional sport should have this skill of leadership, both for improve and increase his job, his position, but also to communicate well with the other departments, with our colleagues, and with the players as well.
And of course, you also have the chance to work with a true teacher, because your head coach Pep Guardiola could easily have a PhD on leadership, and he instilled a winning mentality in your club. How does this winning mentality affect your job?
Yeah, I think that it affects it a lot, because one good leader knows that have to give the leadership to other people in every position. So I can feel this responsibility from the top. I can feel it from the manager, but I can feel it also from the head of the medical services. I can feel from the head of the physiotherapists. And I know that to increase my position and to do a good job, I need to do everything really with care, with professionalism, with passion, and all these skills. And this, of course, it is important, because if you do your job in that way, your contribute to the victory is more important and is significant. So one good leader like Pep, that is a really good leader, knows that he needs and he has to give responsibilities to the people in charge of the other departments, and them as well as have to give the responsibility to the people below themselves. And in that way, everyone try to do more, and doing more, the possibility to success are higher.
Great. Okay, Federico, we're getting closer to the end of this episode. Most of our listeners are young strength coaches or young coaches that are trying to break into professional sports. And I always ask my guests to leave them with one nugget of wisdom.
So there are a lot of quotes that are beautiful, but I think that the most important thing is that we have to love our job, because loving it is the only way to do a great job. So passion, push ourselves, allow to us to reach great results and to be happy in our job and in our life. So be passionate about your job and try to do it in the best way possible.
I like it. I like it. Okay, the last part of this episode will be, as always, 3 rapid fire questions. Okay, I'll make you three questions. You need to answer on the spot. So first of all, carbonara or fish and chips?
Carbonara. No.
This is an easy one.
Carbonara. Yes, very easy.
Okay. Is there another sport that you would like to work on in?
So I really like Formula One, but I don't know a lot about the sport. But it's something that I would like to be involved one time. I don't know when, but at the moment my experience is in football, and I don't want to lose 16 years of experience in professional football. And I think that at the moment I am at a good level of knowledge. I need to, of course, to improve it a lot again, but I can say that at the moment I'm happy about this. But if I have to choose one sport in the future, of course, I would like to work in Formula One.
And the last one, what's your goal as an osteopath?
My goal is to find an index that I define the entropy index. And is an index based on the number and the amount and the importance of the somatic dysfunctions. I'm working with a really good professor on that. This professor is in charge of a research project based on the anatomical network. It's called like that. And we are in the good way because now there is the concept of tensegrity that is really famous in osteopathy and in movement science. And I think that based on that concept, we should have the goal to find one index that will allow to us to understand when the player or the person in general reach the critical threshold on the top of which could face an injury. And this index that I call the entropic index maybe could be find out with the study of the somatic dysfunctions, but we need to work a lot on that. We are in the good way, but we need a lot of time and a lot of technology again. But hopefully we'll reach one day, and at the moment this is my main goal.
Very, very interesting. Federico, if our listeners want to learn something more about you or maybe reach out to you, where can they find you?
Yes, I'm not very social, but I use LinkedIn because it's more professional and less less problematic than others. But otherwise, they can reach me at the email fede.genovesi@libero.it.
Okay, guys, make sure to follow Federico on LinkedIn because he posts so much great information and so many very interesting posts every week. So make sure to follow him on LinkedIn. Federico,
thank you very much.
Thank you very much for accepting to be with us today, and you share so many great and valuable information with us. So thank you very much.
Thanks to you, Roberto, and thanks to all the listener. Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye.